There was a time when a Jewish person, an Italian person, and a black person.
This is about to be a hilarious
Right?
joke, by the way. They go to a bar.
Yeah. They're kicked out.
Yeah. And everyone's like, all of you get the fuck out. That's the punchline.
We don't serve you people here.
We know of new methods of attack. The Trojan horse, the fifth column.
Greetings and welcome back to another exciting installment of the Fifth Column Podcast. This is your weekly rhetorical assaults on the news cycle, the people that make it, occasionally ourselves. I'm Kmele Foster. There are two problems. One, like I don't have a hat on and I didn't do anything to my hair, and this is weird. The second thing is I'm wearing a vest. A down vest.
DeRay McKesson?
And I'm wearing a vest and a flannel.
He thinks that he's Tucker.
It works for Tucker.
Wait,
Tucker
he
has
has
one
a
of the
vest?
number one shows in the.
You can
He's
say
done
number one
whole
vest.
shows in his vest and his
he
flannel.
doesn't
doesn't look
woods.
like
He's a
that
man.
vest.
I think it's a similar vibe, but I really don't like that I'm being exposed in this.
Yeah.
one.
What I'm
This
saying
not
is that
something
I
I'm
want
gonna walk
Tucker
off
to
and
have
get
an
my hat and come
afro.
back.
If like just a small, little tight
afro.
I
Yeah.
think that would finally.
What you call it is a Zionist fro.
But I am happy that you get to see the fade.
hair.
It's
very unusual about my hair.
I'm with Matt
Wow.
Welch, Michael Moynihan. Their other affiliations
it
don't
wasn't bad.
matter.
It wasn't-
Neither does
no.
mine.
No, it's just a
wasn't
little
bad.
frightening.
That was crazy.
This is the Crosstalk Podcast.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's wonderful to be with you. There's an empty chair here because we are awaiting the arrival of our guests. I
Sort of
think
Clint
we can,
Eastwood.
even if it goes badly, we can mention it because her
Yeah.
book is on the table.
Yeah.
One Abby Phillips is coming
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
She's going to talk to us about her book.
No
about
S on the end.
You're exactly right. Abby Phillip.
Yeah.
Philip.
Yeah.
You
But
would know that
it
by
lends
now, wouldn't
itself to Phillips.
Yeah.
You know what? I do know that now.
Yeah.
But I have a
Refer
proclivity
to him as
say
Jesse
Phillips.
Jackson's
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
Do you need
What
to,
did he
Michael? Do you need
call
to get
Barack
your?
Obama?
Barack O'Shaughnessy? I don't know.
No, that's in the book. We'll ask Abby when she gets
The
here.
book for those of you who are listening instead of watching, because that's
Yeah.
also a thing that we
Also a
should
thing
be
that people do.
conscious
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I'm
of. It's
sorry.
called A Dream Deferred: Jesse Jackson and the Fight for Black Political Power.
Yeah.
You have to raise your fist when
Yeah.
you say that.
Do you-
now.
Yeah, I
Michael,
will
do you
not,
need to get your
I
Jack
will
sense
not
out of the
do
way?
it during the interview.
Yeah,
I will
we-
not.
You
I
won't
will
raise
do
your
it.
fist?
Well, that I will do.
Okay.
Just get her on my side. But no, I will not. I will not do a Jesse Jackson thing. Yeah.
Will not.
Yeah.
But you should do it before she gets here.
Deferred. You gotta go down like that.
You have to do the joy bell.
I told you the story that I met him.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
interviewed him. And I should grab the picture because I've told the story, but I won't say it again. But there's a picture of me and Jesse, and Jesse's laughing very hard. And it could be a moment in time where he was like, "This motherfucker," like he was making fun of me. But it looks like I am making him laugh. So, but that's a prized photo.
We're going to talk a lot about Jessie. She's running a little late, so that gives us an opportunity to trash the news cycle a little bit. And perhaps the biggest story of the day, because
decade.
America is devoted to conspiracy theories and all sorts of craziness, is a number of documents that were recently released. Apparently, Congress got a hold of some emails between one Jeffrey Epstein and a couple people with whom he has relationships. Who were the people actually? Wolf was one of them.
It was Michael Wolf was one of them, and then the other email was from Jeff Epstein, the New York financier, to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes.
the
yeah.
Israeli spy.
There might
clearly.
have been. Was there a third person as well? I know there were
I don't
three
think so.
emails.
There are three emails.
But the
yeah.
emails, and maybe we pull up the content of them quickly, or maybe Jason, someone can throw that on the screen.
I mean, people get very excited about this stuff because
the headline is very sensational.
The purpose of it is that Donald Trump is mentioned, and there is an email where he says, that dog hasn't barked.
Yeah, Donald Trump knew about the girls.
He knew about the girls.
What Jeffrey Epstein says.
Which we already knew, considering he gave an interview to New York Magazine in which he said he likes them young. Remember that? I mean, he literally said that. And the email was like, nobody has kind of pointed this out. At the time, Trump is top of the ratings with The Apprentice. So that's the reference. It's not the political campaign hasn't started. He did a bullshit one with the Reform Party or something before. But it was never really thought of in that way at that time. I think it was 2011, maybe? I have to look.
Yeah, I think so.
But people are getting very excited about this, and it makes people think this is why Donald Trump doesn't want the, quote, Epstein files, whatever those are. Nobody's ever kind of delineated what an Epstein file is. That's why he doesn't want them to come out. There might be some truth to that. Who knows? That just a thing like this looks bad for him. But what does it suggest or prove? It's very unclear.
Yeah.
It's very, very unclear. Does anybody have some good reading skills? Because I can't.
I want you to.
Yeah.
This is from GMax.
That's Ghislaine Maxwell. I called her GMax too for a long time.
to New York Financier.
What could that possibly mean?
High importance. Now this is now from Jeffrey Epstein back to GMax.
Yeah.
I want you to realize that dog hasn't barked is Trump. Boy, he really doesn't write well.
No, he's not smart.
Victim.
Yeah, actually,
that's
it's that dog.
redacted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there.
I don't know
what the fuck this means.
Yeah, I mean that's presumably. I mean this is you have to see the whole chain, I presume, and then GMax responds that I have been thinking about that, and I mean that could mean a lot of things.
Dot.
Right? Thinking.
Very
who knows? Very portentous, right? But who knows? I mean, there's but the other.
I mean, but to say he knows, like knows what? It's ambiguous.
Yeah, it's ambiguous. And this is the Michael Wolff email chain. I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his. Now, this is up in 2015, important, where the campaign is in full swing. That about his relationship with you, and this is Jeffrey Epstein, either on air or in scrum afterwards. Epstein responds, if I were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? And Michael Wolff responds, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he's been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and a valuable PR. That's,
if he says he hasn't been on the plane.
Yeah, he hasn't been on the plane and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey's a great guy, has gotten a raw deal, and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. It's a pretty funny line at the end, by the way, which is probably not too far from what he said at the time.
What a solid guy, though. Just giving great advice to a friend.
Wait, is that the extent of the emails? There were no others.
No, there's one more.
There's one more.
There's one more email.
Because we want to get the full scope of these emails. Because the last one, was it also a Michael Wolff email? But, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in these emails that are vague. And this is from Jeffrey Epstein to Michael Wolff. Victim
in 2019.
In 2019. This is not long before Epstein kills himself, by the way, or is murdered by the Jews. Victim, blacked out, redacted. Mar-a-Lago, more redacted. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never remember ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop.
This is supposedly in reference to people who worked at Mar-a-Lago.
Correct.
Who Jeffrey Epstein then hired or took away.
Yes.
Which is something
that was Trump's claim. Yeah.
Which Trump has mentioned this year when
yes,
talking
he has,
about the obviously
numerous times
Democratic hoax.
So not a revelation.
Yeah.
So
but
I'm glad we
bit
did,
there.
Yeah.
Of course, he knew about the girls. That's not too telling. He mentioned that in New York Magazine. He asked Ghislaine to stop.
Yes. Which is what Trump also said.
Here's what he said. I don't know what that means, but let's give it the most generous reading and say this is an email that actually helps Trump out, right?
Well, it does seem like potentially
what he says.
exculpatory at best, at worst, like ambiguous based on this. But I love that we did this in reverse because the headline for the New York Times article that links to these emails.
That broke the story, yeah.
Epstein alleged in emails that Trump knew of his conduct.
That's wrong.
That is exceptionally misleading.
That's misleading.
Elastic.
Misleading.
The paper
he knew
of record.
About the girls. It seems like that everyone in his social circle did, which is why the outrage that all of these rich people, even before the original conviction, knew that he was this kind of sleazebag, yet hung out with him and asked for his money and flew on his plane. There's nothing really surprising in that. But to say that knew of his conduct, do I think he did? Probably, but that's not in the email. I'm not trying to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. I don't think he deserves it in almost every case. But did he know of the conduct?
The full scope of his criminal conduct.
Correct.
Which is the implication.
Yeah. That's
The implication is quite obvious. And
Yeah.
even if it were the case that the email spelled out in detail, oh yeah, I do sex trafficking and it's great. Donald Trump knows all about my conduct.
Those are Michael's
you would
emails
still
to us.
have to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
somewhat
Yeah.
skeptical of
Yeah.
the source of this particular claim, even if he's testifying to GMAX in email.
And I always say
Very
that you
weird.
got to appreciate the
This is a
the
noisy mess.
suicide bombing quality of Michael Tracy, who just doesn't
Michael
care.
Tracy or Michael Wolff?
No, Michael Tracy.
Okay, yeah.
Who has been on the, poking holes in a lot of these conspiracy theories. And there's the first one that comes out and it says redacted, just says victim. And he's like, how do we know it's a victim? We don't know who it is. And it's like, fair. It is true. We don't know who this person is. We don't know what criteria they're using as victim. But that's an important question to ask that nobody wants to ask except for Michael Tracy.
Hey, let him parse the victim thing. We'll handle the survivor one.
Yeah. Well,
Let him
we
go
know
to
how
that
I
one.
feel about that.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people have been parked on this story for so long, and in large part because the administration and various administration officials made all sorts of grand promises about what they were going to do, releasing the Epstein files. Of course, they haven't. There is some piece of legislation
don't
that
know what
might
that
be trying
is,
to
by the way.
agreed, but some
an
piece of
Epstein file is,
legislation
right?
that they've been trying to get through Congress, and they've been using all sorts of weird delay tactics to prevent this from advancing, which does lead one to wonder, what are you trying to obscure? What do you imagine is in there that would be perhaps damaging to the president? But one of the things that we've also seen like this week is people speculating, and by people I mean like a friend of the podcast, Andrew Schultz, who said it on his podcast that maybe, not even maybe, I think he kind of asserted it with a great deal of confidence,
Charlemagne,
that Epstein was clearly working for the government in some capacity in intelligence, doing something, and that's why these documents won't
I think
come
you
out.
said something about a child sex trafficking ring. I don't want to quote it.
Operated by the government. Something along those
something
lines.
weird. It's something that the evidence is not bearing out, I have to say. But this kind of stuff is, you see this in almost every conspiracy. Like when you have the 9/11 conspiracy theorists, you will get some cover-up. This happens in Watergate. There's a million versions of it, in which the cover-up is self-interested. Because
Ass covering.
ass covering.
made
I look
mistakes.
like an idiot.
Yeah.
The FBI looks like an idiot, the CIA looks like an idiot, whatever it might be. We missed this big lead, and they try to kind of push that to the side. In the kind of bizarro galaxy brain that everything is connected in some sort of conspiracy, sees that and says, exactly. It was an inside job. It was like, there is a possibility, and I don't know what is there. If the Democrats in the Oversight Committee have access to this stuff, right? It's no suggestion in this that I can see that this is new material. It's been there for a while. Why the Democrats didn't do Apple F and look for Trump's name is astonishing to me. They're only doing this now. And if they're doing it and holding it this long, it's a pretty good masterstroke in politics. Hold on to this, maximize the damage. I don't think they're doing that because I don't think they're particularly bright about it. But the thing about this is where it's going to go is the bigger conspiracy. It's going all the way. These are the files. These are the files that I've been talking about. The fact of the matter is that if they are dragging their feet on this, the administration, they might be. I have no idea. I don't know because
it could just be incompetence.
The
That is a
existence of this
possibility.
stuff doesn't mean anything because I don't know what this adds to the story writ large beyond the fact that it's Donald Trump's name in it, and it's suggestive of things, but it's not like a silver bullet in any way. But obviously, Trump doesn't want his name out there associated with this guy. That's it. That can't be it for a lot of people. It cannot be it. Is there more? Possibly. I would be surprised that all of these people in various intelligence agencies, which have no problem leaking during Russiagate, the FBI stuff, is
sitting on these
this
documents.
shit there.
Sitting on them.
They trying to undo the presidency. And this is like the closest, the Peter Strzok stuff during Russiagate. And he was like, we'll make sure that he doesn't ascend to that power, basically. There's some And he's actually an interesting guy because then he's the one that dials back the Russiagate stuff and says, like, actually, New York Times, the stuff that you printed is not true. But he's also the guy in that text message that says, you know, we got to get rid of Donald Trump. Kind of. He didn't say that directly, but the Strzok message is the linchpin to the Russiagate stuff. A guy like that coming across messages like this, kidding me? You don't think the fucking intelligence agencies leak stuff all the time? How did this escape attention? That's pretty interesting.
So what you're asking is, why are Epstein emails sent?
Why was traffic problem emails sent?
If you're willing,
At Chipotle, it's about 1% of the people out there will get it. Somebody will point it out in the comments.
if you are willing to run a sex trafficking ring as the federal bureaucracy,
Again, Moynihan's
for
just
the,
right
for
here.
the benefit of
Yeah.
I don't know what.
I don't know, ring.
One, I don't know why you would choose Jeffrey Epstein
Semicircle.
to be the guy at the center of it. Like, particularly nefarious and has all sorts of weird red flags around him. That's one thing. Two, I don't
You
know
mean
why you would just
Mossad?
kind of keep the documents someplace where they could just be later declassified
Yeah,
and then incriminate you
Yeah.
in boxes and files apparently that are readily available. Also weird. And three, why not concoct a better story? Just concoct some nonsense story and push that out for all of us to consume. One might argue that the suicide has already been it, but you could come up with another one. None of these things are happening.
No.
And it's entirely possible that he is an NSA agent. It's not really, but fine. Let me just allow it
I
for
don't
the
think
moment.
NSA has agents,
but
yeah,
whatever. These
maybe.
are the
Maybe they
kinds
do
of things
now.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Puts on
People
the
are
vest
saying,
and the flannel, and
People
then
are saying-
Yeah. He's like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I love it. I love
been
it. I love
attacked by
it.
demons. UFOs are real. We know that now.
But the
I don't
Israelis,
know.
who, by the way, can get Hezbollah pagers and walkie-talkies
Just
and
blow up.
refrigerators, by the way, and then they go into Iran and build a drone factory within Iran. They're that sophisticated. Pegasus, the zero-day exploits, no-click malware, and then they're like, get the guy who likes fucking the 15-year-olds. He's got great stuff. It's like, I don't think that's, and also like, it's like the whole thing is Ehud Barak, who is a man about town in New York City. He lives in Trump Tower. He's been here forever. He invests in companies and all this stuff. None of this is surprising. And Barak, who absolutely loathes Benjamin Netanyahu, none of it makes a lot of sense. But that's the thing about conspiracy theories. It just has to have the whiff of making sense. And then you're the credulous one for actually looking at it and saying, it's not adding up, guys.
It reminds me, I just had a flash of memory from around 1985. So before Kmele was born, probably, definitely. When I went to my first Beatle Fest at the Bonaventure Hotel.
How many Beatle fests have you been to, Moynihan?
Nerd.
Two.
I haven't been to any.
I only made it two. But
Only been to two.
I know.
That's like a lot. It's like a lot of Beatle Fest.
That is 2,000% more than everyone.
there's a guy whose name
Pete Best's brother is going to be at the hotel.
I'm blanking on, but Moynihan will probably remember it because his brain has so many useless pieces of garbage.
No useful.
He was a UC Irvine professor of something unrelated, but he spent his life trying to get the FBI files on John Lennon.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah,
yeah, you know.
the PBS had a documentary, the FBI versus John Lennon.
Yeah,
She was-
and it was absolutely true that John Lennon was under a lot of surveillance in the early 1970s here because he was hanging out with radicals in New York. He was doing a lot of drugs, and they were
did a terrible record with pretty great songs about how Angela Davis was amazing. Attica.
Great and true songs.
Yeah.
And so they did totally spy on him. They did drag their feet on releasing these files, and it's kind of like shameful the extent to which they did. You should investigate him a little bit because, I mean, come on, just look at him. But but this guy had made it. By now, it had been like 10 or 15 years. This was what he did. He was a professor of something else, but he would go to every little Beatles thing and talk about why is the government dragging its feet about the John Lennon files. And when you fixate on the thing that they're not getting you, it's just
And there's
like
always
it's
something.
watching the mushrooms grow after the rain.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much people just go with it. And we've seen this with JFK because there's never a full release of every single last nose hair from that for a lot of dumb reasons or pedestrian reasons, I should say. But that's enough for people to latch onto and to attribute importance. We were talking recently, Moynihan, about various documentaries that weren't released, or about Hollywood people, and really not a big a conspiracy, just because they didn't like the way they looked on camera.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
I look.
That's right. We were talking about two of those recently.
I mean, I'm feeling very uncomfortable without my hat. I'm just gonna leave and
the
come
main
back.
the main
Pool
reason
thing
for
is really too much.
for
He's going to get
my
his hat.
God.
Literally going to get his hat.
Adderall is a choice, people. You
It
don't
is.
have to make it.
No.
Hitler was right. Well, usually when you jump out of the shot,
But I thought that would be funny.
Well, we can
we could have the beginning of
cut
it.
around the parts where we scoot in.
Okay, I'm back. I feel more comfortable now. I feel by
My-
myself. But this fucking vest is hot.
Thank you, Camille, for
Continuity.
illustrating my points
Yeah.
for on-camera talent who have really, really retarded reasons for wanting to suppress editorial information.
Called
Yeah,
vanity,
yeah.
and it is not retarded.
And I mean, so on the celebrity side, it's vanity. On the government side, it's ass covering. That explains probably 98.9%
Most of it.
of
Yeah,
all
right.
things, slow rolling the release of things. This is, I think, mark my words, is like people are never going to let go. There's going to be a subset of people who will just like latch onto this because now it's bipartisan. Several presidents.
Yeah.
You can talk yourself into believing that Bill Clinton was right there with Jeff Epstein, the New York financier.
Doesn't all of that make it that much more ridiculous? Like, it makes it that much more absurd.
Were Adderall tablets
Can't
ingested?
believe Jeffrey Epstein, who was a brilliant financier,
A dear friend.
great tax advice.
It's also fun.
There's actually no
It's fun.
evidence
It's
that
fun.
Jesse Jackson
This
was
is
involved
a
with him.
big thing about it.
consumption
it
of it is fun.
This secret knowledge is fun.
Yes.
Rolling your eyes at people that, oh, you believe that is fun. But the narrative is so strong that somebody posted the other day a screenshot, and I'm assuming it's real. I looked at the guy's thing. I was like, oh, it seems like a weird thing to make up. But from that he had a DM on Instagram from Zoran Mamdani's now wife before they were married. And it was in November of 2023. It was like 3 weeks after October 7th. And she sent a DM that goes into that slot pile if you don't follow someone, so you don't actually ever see it. And he saw it like 3 years. And she was like, why are you not talking about the genocide? November, it says 3 weeks after, like the military response had started a week before. Why aren't you talking about the genocide? And it reminded me of that mustachioed loser that I can't remember, the conspiracy theorist guy who's Candace's
I can't remember
co-host
his
or
name.
whatever.
Yeah.
But that was the guy that after Charlie Kirk was killed in the same day.
Is it Ian?
Ian Carroll.
Ian Carroll. Yeah.
And he in the same day, or it was maybe 16 hours later, was like, Israel did this. And it's like, unless this fucking homeless guy who lives with his mom with the mustache is like working for Mossad or has their phones tapped, how do you know? Oh, because the narrative is so powerful, you can never get rid of it. But when it gains steam like this, it's the anomalies that convince the kind of half-hearted ones. So well, there's something anomalous about this, but it's very hard to explain to people that there's anomalies in everything. Every single thing. You can make a conspiracy theory, and people have, out of almost anything. And I think the worst people and the people that really further this stuff are the people who study them.
Think about
Because they're so deep into it, and they
Think about-
don't want it not to be true.
high-profile criminal cases, whatever they are. Whatever they are.
Sure.
You won't believe how much the prosecution
Of course.
screwed up. You won't believe how much the defense screwed up. You won't believe that they didn't allow this bit of testimony here. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Every single one, there's going to be some kind of, when you're paying that much attention to it, it's going to evaporate in front of your eyes. And you're
Two things about that. One, it's exactly right when you say it was said that Jeffrey Epstein he's connected to intelligence. There's one like third-hand source. The original source denied this, of course. So that you trace that back and you're like, oh, it's this Vicky Ward piece, and she had been writing about this for years, and this only came up in 2019, and none of it makes a ton of sense. When Asada Shakur died, I did this really weird deep dive into the main claim of her innocence was that she was like shot in the back, and she had her hands up, she was shot in the back. But there's 2 police officers are shot, one is killed, the other one's wounded. How does any make sense? And I found something that nobody had ever noticed and ever written about. There's an expert that was called to say, a doctor, who said, you know what, shot in the back, et cetera. And I said, who the fuck is this doctor? And I looked him up, and then later, it was from 1995 or 6. He dies, and there's an obituary for him in the New York Times. At the bottom of the obituary, it says he's survived by his wife, and her last name is Kunstler. And anybody who knows radical politics knows that the only radical lawyer was Bill Kunstler, William Kunstler. And he was who? He was Assata Shakur's lawyer. They were so tight and everything, when they got divorced, the medical examiner guy married her, and he was this big activist. So the one fucking linchpin of all of this stuff is a guy who just happens to marry Bill Kunstler's ex-wife? Like, is that a conspiracy? No, it's just a data point that, like, the guy has politics that are focused exactly where Bill Kunstler's and where Assata Shakur's are. And that's where that one data point comes from. And you scratch on this stuff and you're like, oh, this conspiracy, and that's like, sounds like a conspiracy, but it's undoing the conspiracy of like, all these cops are lying there and somehow she just got shot in the back.
And it's an exceptionally modest claim.
It's an exceptionally modest claim that carried an inordinate amount of weight for a long time from people that wanted the politics of that to be. There was no, and I noticed one other thing about that. I couldn't find a single shooting, and there were a lot of shootings with the Black Liberation Army and the Panthers. Not one. I cannot find a single one where there is not a narrative that marshals evidence that they were shot in the back, they were unarmed. Every single one. I'm like, how is this happening? And they're like, yeah, it's that big of a conspiracy.
Yeah, predisposed to believe it. Yeah.
Half the cops themselves are black, and none of it makes any sense. But every time, to your point, there is a plausible enough narrative that can satisfy your predetermined ideological needs. It can satisfy those needs.
And you have a frustrating outcome. Correct. The outcome is that the person that you want to support is frustrating or like alluring because it's kind of like hopeless, but you're willing to back it anyway.
Presume it's always safe, and this is the genesis of the joke Guilty book. Presume that the conspiracy in the setup isn't true, and maybe work your way to like, okay, well maybe there's something to this one. But I know a lot of people who start with the assumption that the conspiracy is true. And that's why they call us conspiracy theorists. But, we're just asking the questions that other people should be asking. No, we call you that because you start with the conspiracy theory and you work backwards trying to find the evidence to prove it. That's a narrative building exercise.
There is a longer conversation that I would like to have at some point. And when Matt came in today, I think we can call this the studio. Into the studio, I was having a bit of an existential crisis, just thinking about the degree to which conspiracism seems to be at the center of our politics, and having a realization, and realization is the wrong word because it's not for the first time, but I'm just integrating some things that it's kind of always been that way.
100%.
Like the National Enquirer had a massive circulation at its peak in the 1970s, was outpacing the New York Times
magazine,
and Wall Street Journal and all of
Weekly
these
World
other
News
publications.
at Anger.
It was selling a simple narrative that was extraordinary and hard to believe, but that helped to put the complicated, scary, messy world into some kind of order, and people loved it. I think you referred to this as pornography.
It is,
and Pornhub is one of the number one destinations on the internet.
What is
Perhaps
that?
only
That's,
second.
that's
I don't know. Apparently they have like intimate stuff there. Okay. But I don't go places
Just
like
open my browser. It's my homepage. If you can see different. It's good because it tells you what I like too.
Yeah.
No, the thing about this stuff, it is like pornography. I said the conspiracy theory is like pornography because porn has gotten more extreme, and that's like sociologists have made this point. Like we need more to be like visually satisfied by things that used to be just like you look at the old
and also
Boogie
niche.
Nights porn niche and like weird.
So
and that's what the conspiracies are. Like Tucker has to be like, I praised Maduro and the Taliban. It's like in the last episode was about chemtrails. It's like he's running out of crazy and he's just looking around grabbing the stuff because for him it's a mindset, it's a worldview, and he wants to reassure his listeners that he's on to the deep state. And you have no idea how deep their tentacles go. They're even poisoning us from the sky, which was my favorite response to that, was contrails, which is the condensation trails in a plane. It was like, you didn't see those.
Did you watch any
before?
of it?
No, I don't have fucking time
It's
for that.
so bad.
They didn't see those before like the 80s. What was happening? And a bunch of people were posting photos of bombers over Germany and the contrails, and it's like we're poisoning them as we're bombing them. We're going to poison those Germans with the cloud seeding. It's like, no, it's just condensation, guys. But that stuff is a level of crazy, which it's immune from factual analysis because it's so clearly crazy and fake, but no one really gives a shit. And that's the problem, right?
Or
no one cares.
Maybe they do. I think it's partly like, yes, there's been this in the culture forever, but there's been a bulwark of other things, and those other things have collapsed.
Yeah.
One of those other things was sort of institutional media that's collapsed by 85%. It just has. And so, a lot of civic institutions have absolutely squandered their credibility. I mean, I swear to God, we had, I believe it was the Centers for Disease Control enforced the rental of freeze moratorium, eviction moratorium.
Yeah.
That happened like literally 4 years ago under Trump too.
Exactly.
And it continued afterwards. It doesn't make any sense. So I think part of it is that we see all this a lot more because we see a lot of the other stuff less.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about all that more later. But
I want to add something to that in a bit later.
You can just weave it in later on.
It's been around for so much longer. It's very unique that it's on the right now and so publicly. If you look on the left in the 80s, the number of like PBS documentaries on cocaine and the CIA and Mumia being
that's just true.
That was all.
That's just
sort
But
of
I mean,
facts,
it's also
what
very
you're
much
talking about.
2020 and beyond.
Correct.
It's a lot of the social justice excesses, and that is when they torched their remaining credibility. And to be doing that at the same time that this populist revolution in information is taking place is the worst possible decision you could make.
You know who
if you
I think
wanted
is
to
probably
maintain
very
your
smart on
credibility.
this? Abby Phillip.
I believe
I
so.
think she's
that?
very, very
I'm sorry, who's
smart
that?
on this issue.
Well, we're back, and Miss Abby Phillip joins us in the studio today, and we have your book here, Abby. A Dream Deferred, Jesse Jackson and the Fight for Black Political Power. Thank you so much for joining us. And this
Thanks for having
was
me.
released last week, is that right?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago,
About
okay.
October 28th.
Sorry we're a little late.
So, no, that's okay. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah. Well, we want to talk about the book for sure. And I have so many thoughts. And there are lots of things that I really liked and lots of things I have questions about and want to talk about. And I know the guys
I'm
have
really
read it
interested
too.
in talking to you about it because,
bet.
I think I know.
We've had some interesting exchanges
Yeah.
Let's
on
see.
your show.
Even the title, he's like black.
Yeah, I was going to
I
say.
don't even believe in black.
Let's
Did I
guess
wince?
the
Did I
word.
wince when I read it?
Just a man.
You winced, and I was like, do I just leave now? I don't think I should be here.
No, but I also want to talk about you because you are like kind of consequential in the media ecosystem. You've got this exceptionally successful show on CNN. It is a unique home for conversations, but I also discovered something about you. And it's something we have in common, which is that we both resided in PG County for a lot of time and are both Caribbean.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, tell me more.
And are you you're first generation, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
both of my parents are
You know
from
what-
Trinidad and Tobago.
I knew
Yeah.
when I met you for some reason. In fact, when I first saw you,
Let
that
me
you
point-
were
I
probably
pointed that
one of
out
our
to you, by
people.
the way.
No, but
I
you were
pointed out
probably
to
one of our
Trinidad,
people. But I didn't
yeah.
know. I didn't
Our
know if it
people?
was first
This is
generation,
from
first
Kmele
generation
Foster. We just heard
American.
our people.
I'm going to be very specific.
Clip that.
Give me an opportunity. First generation American from either the Caribbean or Nigeria. And I didn't know which it was, but then I discovered this fact. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
So where are you from?
My family's from Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
All
I
right.
was born here. Yeah.
Okay.
What does that mean to both of you?
What do you mean?
Well, the Irish and the Italians, because my family were like, my father who was Irish, referred to the Italians as the Guineas. So there was some thing, but there is a Caribbean thing. When I said that to you, I said, I think that her family's Trinidadian. You were like, oh, that.
There is. I will say you're right. There is a little bit of
a thing.
blood between Jamaicans and Trinidadians.
Yeah. Oh.
In particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
But that's
right?
not what I meant when I said
Because the
it.
food is an issue.
Yes.
Right.
The patois is a little different.
Trinis definitely think their food is superior.
It's not. But
Trinis.
yes.
I think it is.
I think we didn't use that word anymore, but
Secondly-
apparently we do.
I self-identify now.
Secondly, I definitely think there's a superiority. I mean, as a Trinidadian, I can tell you
Yeah.
there's a bit of a superiority complex that we have because, I think as a Caribbean nation, Trinidadians they consider themselves to be very independent, very intellectual, and they're very political. This is one thing I have learned. Trinidadians are extremely political. And I think because unlike some of the other islands in the Caribbean, it's not really a tourism economy. It's an oil economy. It's a different kind of whatever, blood money. But,
dysfunction.
Yes.
Dysfunction.
Dysfunction.
Yeah.
Oil economy. I think there's a sort of like economic superiority where they're like, we don't rely on American tourists for whatever. This is just the culture, a little bit of the culture. I'm just giving you the tea
capital
on
of
that.
music over here.
Well, this is just it. I think it's our outsized cultural influence that creates some of the tension as well. See, watch this. Yeah.
Soca was born in Trinidad. The steel pan was invented in Trinidad.
Yeah, but we made it
the
great.
Angostura bitters, the Angostura bitters that you put in your cocktails.
Okay, now you got
Right.
me.
Now we're
was,
talking my
that was
language.
created in Trinidad and
that
Tobago.
right?
Is he Abby?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You can go to where they make it in Trinidad. So, any case,
Have you
there's
ever
a
been to
lot.
Tobago?
I have,
I
yes.
don't think I never heard about Tobago.
Tobago
kind
is
of the
actually
Montenegro
more
of the
of the
situation.
touristy part of Trinidad and Tobago. It's like a smaller island where you can do the beach thing. But Trinidad, like people go to the beach, but it's not like beach resorts. It's
One
like
of my favorite
beach,
writers
beach.
is Trinidadian Indian. V.S. Naipaul
Yes,
was
V.S.
Trinidadian, and I thought for years that he was Indian, but he grew up and raised. There's a big Indian community.
Very
right?
big. I think
Jamaica
it's
too?
more than half of the population now.
Is it more than half the
I
population?
think. But yeah, I mean, I think Trinidad is people of African descent, a lot of people of Indian descent. A lot of political leaders in Trinidad have been of Indian descent more so than anything else, but then all people like
Asians too.
Asians,
Yeah.
people of Latin descent. So it's actually like
The
a
Muslim
big
population.
melting pot of a country. I think, which is that's kind of what I grew up knowing Trinidad to be.
It
Like
runs
all of
counter
my
to
friends growing up
convention.
were
Yeah.
Indian or Black, or I have family members who are Indian. I have family members who have Latin, genes or whatever. So in my own family, I have people in my family who look all kinds of different ways: white, Black, Indian, Latino, whatever.
Coolie.
What's the accent of your parents? What does it sound like? Come on.
I can't do it. I
Yes,
can't
you
do
can.
it.
This
I
is-
can't.
no, this
I
is
can't.
Come on, you can
I've
do it.
told them
I
before,
can't do
like
it.
I can do it in a way that is credible to them.
Yeah,
but if I
yeah.
did this around
No,
my family,
absolutely
oh,
not.
God,
Get all out
the
of here.
shame.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
shame.
Yeah.
And I certainly couldn't do it like in Jamaica. It
Yeah,
would just be
no.
too much. I go beyond like the proper English vernacular. I don't want you to have any inkling that I might have sort of kind of been from here.
I used to have an accent when I was younger.
Yeah?
Really?
Yeah, I had because I lived in Trinidad I was born here.
Yeah.
We moved back when I was like maybe 3 or 4 months old, and then I lived there until I was like 8.
Oh,
Eight-ish, 8.5.
Oh, so you had
So-
a real accent.
Oh, yeah. So there's a
Do you have,
videotape.
you have a recording?
There
of it?
is.
Yeah.
I don't know where the recording is right now, but I have heard a recording of me
Yeah.
at like 6 talking.
With like
And I'm
newscaster
like,
voice?
I'm like,
Yeah.
who is this
Yeah.
little Trini girl?
See, I like that we've gone down this rabbit hole.
Steve Kornacki, by the way, a Bostonian, grew up not too
that's
far
true,
from me.
yeah.
Our dear friend Steve
Yeah.
Kornacki. And apparently there exists, because he's always been the same. He was born that way. He
Yeah.
had stats in the hospital. He's like, my weight was 35 pounds. It's like, okay, Steve, relax. But he did like a cable access
That's right,
show
that's right.
when he was in high school. And he said there's a recording, and he has a huge Boston accent. And I'm desperate to get this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Steve. And he's like,
I gotta
you're not
find
gonna-
a way.
Yeah, you gotta find. I mean, in retrospect now, I'm like, where is this tape? Somebody has it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does exist.
We want to air it here first. When you find it.
I mean, I'll find it one day because
think
people don't
CNN
believe
may
me
have
when
a
I
claim
say
on
this. But I lost it. I lost it pretty quickly, I think, once we moved here.
Yeah, my mom's has been horribly. It's mutated into something deplorable. I mean, it's just.
She is a
awful.
basket of diploma.
I do love her.
Both of my parents have their Trini accent and then their American Trini accent. It's like a version of their accent that they do for Americans.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
That is a little bit less accented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason that I feel like I can't reproduce it. When I'm down there, I can kind of it starts to slip in.
Yes.
But when I'm just sort of like
why I
living my
fight
life,
against
it's
it.
very hard to reproduce it.
See, I mentioned it, and I wanted to highlight it not because of the tension between the Trinidadians and the Jamaicans,
which
but
apparently
because
are real and
I
no one
love
wants to
it.
talk about, to be
Well,
honest.
no, people
Knife
do
fights,
talk about
it's
it.
great.
Yeah.
But because of the tension between the notion of blackness in the American context
sure.
and this kind of otherness that people who are from the Caribbean and from Nigeria, and as I came to learn eventually, because one of my roommates was Igbo, that the Nigerians don't really like the Jamaicans either. His dad, my brother
We all
Namdi's
kind
dad,
of
had
unite
an
around
exceptionally
that
low opinion.
formula.
Had an exceptionally low opinion of me because of my Jamaicanness, and
Wow.
I liked him. I think I eventually became like, it was clear that I was one of the good ones.
Yeah.
But you know,
Articulate.
that's
No,
what
the
I
most
was
racist person I've
underscoring.
ever met was, and I've talked about on the show before, was Ghanaian. I was like, Jesus,
Yeah, they're pretty
guys,
bad.
ooh, relax.
Yeah, I know a few of those. They're very good friends. But yeah, that was the tension that I was underscoring, which I suspect you grew up with, because I remember distinctly in my household growing up, when I would hear people talk about us and them, you would have to wait to figure out whether the
talking
us
about-
and the them was white people or it's the American blacks.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is a whole can of worms.
Just do it. You wrote a
I would
book.
just say,
You can say it in front of us. It's
well,
fine.
no, I mean,
It's whispering in
I
Michael's
would
ear.
just say that the knock on Caribbean Americans and people from the continent of Africa is that they don't understand the Black experience in America. And I think that to some extent that is true, because the Black experience in other parts of the world is different in certain ways. However, I mean, I think that my family, we were not raised that way. We were not raised necessarily to be like, well, that's them and you're you. Not in that sense. Not in the sense that we're better than or whatever, but more in like a biblical sense is the best way to put it. Like my dad was a pastor. And so he was like, y'all are not going to act like all those kids over there.
Yeah.
Right? And we were also immigrants. So we didn't have a safety net. There was nobody to catch us. We just had us and our family. And so the expectations were higher for us, not because we were better than, Black Americans who kind of came up in this country's tradition of slavery and Jim Crow, et cetera, but because we didn't have the sort of benefit of failure. And also my parents were very religious growing up, but they were like, you literally cannot act like those girls over there dancing to Britney Spears. Like, it just was not allowed. So I do think that's part of how I grew up, that if there was a sense that we were different from other people, it was in that respect. But I do think that my family was very cognizant of just the fact that they came from Trinidad and Tobago, would never protect us from experiencing what any other person of dark skin in this country might experience. And so while it was never like at the center of our world was like racism, you're going to experience racism, we never talked really about that growing up. I think that they never really, we were never sort of given the impression that we had it better because we didn't have the weight of racism on us. And I think that there's, I'm just sort of putting myself in the headspace of Black immigrants who come to America. And sometimes what I hear is, well, there's so much focus on race that they let the prospect of racism sort of get in the way of their capacity to achieve. That's sort of a dumbed down version of the argument. But I don't think that, first of all, I don't really think that's true, because I think that there is actually a different way that racism manifests in America than in other parts of the world. That is true regardless of whether you were born here or not. And secondly, I don't think that it's true that it's just the perception of racism that holds Black people back. I think it is the actual racism that has held Black Americans back. Like the actual fact that in this country, that in the 1960s, there were neighborhoods you could not buy a house in, jobs that you could not get, universities that you could not go to. That is actually what holds people back. There are Black Americans in this country today. If you have a particular name, you may not get hired for a job because it reads Black. If, I think that is a real thing. That is not a perception thing. And so understanding that, I credit my parents with never sort of letting us get away with, oh, well, that's just in their head. That was never a thing. And I think that's my personal experience. That's my perspective on this. But I do think that sometimes immigrants come to America and they are like, well, they're just so focused on race. And I really don't think that's, if you actually look at the history and you read and you know what happened and what still happens in this country, that like an appraiser will go into a house with pictures of a Black family and appraise their home as less than if the photos were not there. When you know that those things happen, you cannot just say that it's in anybody's head, because it's not.
How did that experience compare with yours growing up? Like, in what the sort of messages that were broadly communicated to you about these things?
I think especially, and it's so interesting to hear you talk about this, because as you were explaining it, I'm remembering things and thinking, actually, that framework of understanding is more compatible with my actual experience, specifically the detail that you can't be like them. You don't have that luxury. You don't have the luxury of engaging in the culture in that way. It was certainly my mother's perspective. And there was also that evangelical Christian dimension of it as well. You can't go to those parties on Friday nights. And my family was Adventist as well, is Adventist. So not only could I not go to the parties.
So we grew up a little bit more similar than...
Yeah.
Did you go to church on Saturdays?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going
So
down.
we have,
Look
we have
at
a lot
their
to
Moynihan's
talk
like,
about.
what's a
Wait,
church?
what are we
Yeah, they ain't even know. But look, I actually want to come back to some of these themes because they very much get into specifically the stuff I wanted to talk to you about where Jesse is concerned. But I also want to talk about your show at CNN and the culture and the media landscape broadly. And I mean, Matt, we were texting and you've been on the show as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this on this program even pretty recently. A dozen years ago, there were maybe a dozen cable shows where people like us could go, where we can go sit around with people like Steve Kornacki or Chris Hayes.
We used to be on Chris's show all the time.
Melissa Harris Perry show was great.
You do have to specify people like us, like people with kind of weird.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Politics.
People with weird politics who don't necessarily fit in, but who could
code right or left immediately.
Yeah.
who don't. But it's not really even about us. It's more like it's a table in which it is expected that if there's 3 or 4 people, that they are not going to agree, that they're going to have respectful, usually, but sometimes vigorous disagreements with one another, and that's part of normal civic life.
Yes.
There were a dozen shows like that. There are right now 1 or 2 or 3, and yours is one of them. So I'm curious.
And keeping in mind, by the way, to do that in the way, I don't have CNN, I watch it in clip format, and I initially said, oh, CNN is trying to recreate some of the success of Piers Morgan, this kind of thing. And watching the show, that it's a very, very different thing.
It's different,
than
very
that.
different.
I mean, I probably said on the show, when your show started, oh, they're trying to gin up ratings in the way that Morgan gets 80 million views per clip. But then I realized that the people on the panel were not mentally ill. And they were
also
not psychopathic, like Holocaust deniers.
Yeah,
Those people
we
out.
don't invite the self-avowed white supremacists
nationalists
onto the show.
Camille would like you to.
So,
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that.
yeah, first of all, my favorite thing about the show is the people in like weird ideological space like
Yeah.
you guys,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know your politics just yet, but I'll
He
learn
doesn't
I am a
either.
white
as we-
nationalist.
that I think that adds like just such a
Yeah.
great little flavor to the show.
Yeah.
Because we do have like the MAGA Republican and we have the liberal and all of that stuff.
But you have, like, the best MAGA
But we have
Republicans,
people.
actually.
I love having people who just like drop a little grenade in the middle of the table and like everybody has to react to it because it's different and it's not predictable. And I think that it can be super valuable. But I also just love a good debate.
Yeah.
Like the analogy I give is at home, over the holidays. It's crazy how often we do this, but we have debates a lot. But it's usually about like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know what?
Whitney wins that one.
Well, look, I think that
Related to
the
Dionne
act,
Warwick.
But that
It's a
whistle note,
different- yeah.
Moynihan.
the act of staking out your position
Yeah.
and defending it is a skill. It is a skill, and there's value in it. And
But
whether
there's also a skill in what you do in the sense that, I've hosted shows, I've interviewed people for many, many years, is you also have that added thing where you are part of the debate. You are making your claims with this table of people, and you also have the responsibility of traffic comping it when it gets out of hand and people are talking over each other. So that's like a kind of a different thing that you have to do, right?
yes, and I will say I came to that fairly reluctantly
Yeah.
because I don't love
No.
being in the conversation, but sometimes it has been necessary. Sometimes it's helpful because I think part of what we're doing is also teaching people who come on the show what a debate looks like, because a lot of people aren't used to doing it.
Yeah.
So people have to kind of get warmed up to it and they have to understand what the cadence is. And so sometimes I have to show people what it means to actually go back and forth with somebody and really like press, kind of have that sort of opposing pressure
And not
on
just
an argument.
for, a 6-minute clip that everyone is in and out except for the host.
Yeah.
Which is what it is anymore.
Yeah.
Like you have an hour. You're sitting with the same people for an hour.
Yes.
And so this can play across
Why I
commercial
stopped
breaks.
doing cable news hits is like, we're going to send you a car. The entire process is going to take 4 hours. You'll be on for a 5-minute
5
segment with two
minutes,
other
yeah.
people. And it's like, okay, so I'm doing this for a sentence.
Get
or
the
two.
one
I think
punch.
that's why people
Yeah.
find it valuable to come on the shows, because they get a lot of time and they get a lot of airtime. And I think, the balance I try to strike is skepticism on behalf of people who are watching, who are wondering, well, what about this? How can you say that if this is true? Or do you really believe that? It's like a little bit of like just questioning of the premise of the lives that we're living, the politics that we're in. And yeah, I mean, Trump happens to be in power right now. So a lot of the questioning lands on Trump and what he's doing. But I think that is, when we've had debates about Biden, and I've had liberal guests come on and they'll be like, well, he was fine, and the real problem
Yeah.
is that they pushed him out. It's like,
I've been there for that.
excuse me?
Yeah.
Like,
I've
right?
been there for
Like,
that too.
we all know
I went
there
through
is
too.
a kind of like, are you serious
Yeah.
aspect to
Yeah.
some of it that I think somebody has to do on behalf of the people who are at
Yeah.
home who are watching, are like, what are we talking about
But
here?
there was a long time where that could not be reliably counted. You couldn't count on the host of the show to do that sort of thing because everything tilted kind of much harder left. People were only interested in these kind of sequestered conversations. Even people who we know, who we've been at not this table, but, metaphorically speaking, with, who'd known us. Like, if I had a perspective, like some of the perspectives I've offered on your show, actually, in 2021 on various race issues, like there wasn't an opportunity to have a conversation. Like there was no one who was going to invite me to have a debate with Ibram X. Kendi in 2020 or 2021.
Particularly
he could
Ibram
not
X.
be
Kendi.
debated.
Yeah.
But not only him, Nicole Hannah-Jones, various other people. I mean, there are a bunch of folks who have had shows on MSNBC who before we could have conversations about hands up, don't shoot. You couldn't talk about that sort of thing anymore after 2020. And I think that's one specific example, but another example of that is the cancel culture conversation, like whether or not it was even a thing. Certainly a lot of the gender and identity issues, similar sort of thing. The terrain has opened up now, and we can again actually engage in conversations, and lots of people are doing it in supremely unhealthy ways. But I've always appreciated that your show is a place where you try to do this in an authentically sober way, get sober guests, but actually open up the territory. And you, as I've said, like weigh in ways that are hardly kind of conventionally coded left. Like I've heard you do the thing on cancel culture. I've heard you do it on other
Which
issues.
definitely got me in trouble with certain people. I mean,
I suspect even having certain people on has gotten you in trouble with certain people.
That's always the case. It's always like, why do you platform X, Y, and Z?
How much do you love that
I'm
word?
sorry, by the way.
Platform is a bad word.
I freak out about this because
bad word.
as I always say, we used to call it interviewing. That's a perfectly serviceable word. Yeah.
I mean, I think that first of all, I would love to have that conversation with you and Ibram X. Kendi or whoever. I
don't think he'd do it now either.
I wish more people were open to sitting down and hashing it out and defending their position and persuading. I think it is actually super valuable to do that. But a lot of people don't want to do that. They really want to just talk to the people who will nod their heads. And I just think that that's not healthy in the long run for us as a society.
Could you say why?
Because I think that we need to, first of all, ideas need to be challenged, period. Okay, it is okay for people to disagree with you, even if I agree with you. I want other people to disagree with you because I think it actually makes your argumentation stronger. And I think persuasion is the work of democracy. If you believe something, but you cannot persuade people who do not believe what you believe, then you're not in the game. That is what this is.
What are the limits to that on your show when you see people on the right in particular that are embracing increasingly insane ideas? The Tuckers of the world, the debates about groypers and how much influence. If they have the influence.
Nazi sympathizing is, absolutely a red line.
But
that's an easy one.
So that's
right?
a red line. And if they have an influence in the party, though, if it's been mainstream, I'm not saying that's happening. I know people do make that argument. They say, well, we got to debate these
Tucker
ideas.
and Candace are like number one and number two on the chart.
And so is, listen, I think the Nazism, the white supremacy, those are clear. First of all, I just should say that I think it is fair to point out that we are willing to say, Nick Fuentes is a Nazi sympathizer, but we also don't point out.
He says it, yes.
But we also don't point out that he is also a racist and an avowed one at that. And I think that both of those things are just as unacceptable. And I applaud many people on the right who are saying, excuse me,
There's a big
don't
debate
come over
about it,
here.
yeah.
But there are plenty of people who are speaking up, and I think that is important. So there are clear lines. I do think there are blurred lines, though, right? There are parts of this where it's harder to decipher, where where there are people who come just up to the line of what you think is. Some people might say is racist. Some people might say is racially charged, whatever that means. But they are open. They're open to debate. They're willing to sit down and have a real intellectual conversation with you about things. And I think that there should be consideration given to actually hashing out some of these things, because there's a lot of rhetorical games being played right now with people who have big microphones, and they can play those rhetorical games because no one is ever challenging them. And the sometimes sitting in front of another person and actually asking them, oh, what do you really mean when you say this, can be really important, because they either reveal themselves to be who you think they are, or they reveal themselves to be something different, maybe something a little bit more nuanced. And I think we ought to have an opportunity to know that for some people.
We made fun of him quite a bit because he would have people on the Fox show come on and debate him, and it was always like some junior in college that was like said Marxism should rule.
Associate professor.
And it's like watch him beat up.
Right.
On the easy, the guy that Mike Tyson fights right out of jail, just to warm up.
Like punching down.
And punching down. But now it's just, as you say, it's all these psychos that agree with him. But I just add one more very quick question to that. Are there guardrails on the left? I mean, we talk about the people on the right. Are there people on the left that are too far, you think, to, and again, I won't use the word platform, but to have on the show?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
our new mayor, for instance.
Well, he has actually been on the show before he was going to be mayor.
Was he still tilting the head and smiling all the time?
This is before he ran. He was on the show. Oh,
Yeah.
Look at you.
Interesting.
We had him on.
You platformed him. Look.
See what you've
You
done.
had no idea he was going to take about half your money.
No, I mean, we brought him on to talk about Israel and Gaza.
Yeah.
And
Does he have an interest in that topic?
yeah, and look,
weird.
I mean, and he, you can go back and watch the interview. I mean, I think it was an interesting interview because it was I think it was not quite the roundtable format, but it was about student activism on campuses, and that was part of the debate. And so, I mean, I think he's an actual nuanced person. I think he has the ability to sit down and you can talk to him. I mean, and that's what I'm trying to say is that if you sat down, I assume you disagree with him on many things.
Oh, I think he's great about taking all of my money.
Yeah. Well, if he were sitting right there,
Yeah.
you could sit down and have a whole debate with him about it.
Oh, well, I'd
And
be
so-
desperate to do
If
it.
he-
And I
said
think,
yes,
and I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it would be really valuable to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Because again, like people who have these sort of postcard views, sometimes what's really needed is a good hour to drill down on what you're really talking about.
You don't know people are so bad that you can't platform them until you hear them.
That's
Somebody
exactly
has
right.
to do the interview initially
Yeah.
for you to know that they have quote
Yeah.
unquote bad ideas. I mean, I had a situation at Vice when they didn't want to run a Steve Bannon interview in 2020. And I said
So
he was the
crazy.
campaign manager in 2016.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a bizarre
mean,
thing.
He's
When-
doing you a favor by showing up. You're
here's
not
the
doing
thing.
him a
Yes.
favor.
Here's what I would say. When I was covering Trump when he was in the White House the first time, 2016, 2017, and I talked to Steve Bannon all the time.
Yeah, he talked to a lot of journalists.
He was
Yeah,
a source.
He was a source.
Yeah. And guess what? If you were a reporter and you were covering that White House and you weren't talking to Steve Bannon,
You're not doing
you were doing something wrong because he understands Trump. He actually
100%,
is the originator of a lot of Trump ideology and ideas in MAGA world. You must understand where he is in
And
order
he
to
understands
understand.
the media, which is what
Absolutely.
he's talking
So
about.
it's actually really important to talk to people like a Steve Bannon, who I actually think is in many ways more nuanced than people give him credit for, because he has this sort of, he is actually like a purist, a populist purist in a way that not even Trump is totally. And I think that there are some nuances to how he approaches what MAGA is that are very important to understand if you want to understand Trump and his base and where this is all headed. So that's that on
Yeah.
Steve Bannon. But I mean, look, I don't know. I don't like these bright lines, except for the people for whom it's very clear that there's a little bit unstable, where it's like, I'm not sure what the value is going to be of the conversation.
No Kanye. That's what I'm hearing out of that.
But
The post forgiveness Kanye?
Which
I don't know. I mean,
forgiveness?
I
just
have-
the
Converted to
latest
Judaism
one.
now.
I have to be able to have a conversation that's in the real world. That's at least the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And so,
Not a lot to ask, I don't think.
and
Well.
I know that sounds vague, but I think we can all think of people who are just not.
Candace Owens is not in the real world.
Yeah.
She does not exist.
Some
on the
people-
same
Well,
planet, yeah.
but
Are not in the
there
real
was
world.
actually a very good interview with someone from CNN, if I'm not mistaken.
My former colleague advice.
Who specializes in talking to
and it was exceptionally
People
valuable.
like
you
Candace
need
Owens.
that. Like no one had been talking to Candace Owens. She was going unchallenged, as you pointed out. I want to talk about when I'm on your show. One of the things that always stands out to me is the number of people who disregard your direction when you're trying to go to break and they are in the midst of an
Yes.
argument.
Tell me about it.
And it makes me crazy.
Tell me about
We
it.
had this conversation last week.
Maybe, but I've mentioned it before. It's like almost like
Yeah.
a bit in a way. Like they just completely disregard you. They're talking across the table as though they're children.
Yeah.
There's
Maybe they're
one
clipped. They're looking for
time
their clip,
where I
you know?
like kind of intervened a little bit and actually felt a little ashamed afterwards because I kind of quipped at someone in a sharper way than I intended to, because I try to comport myself in this particular kind of way in these contexts. But I was just curious how you felt about this. If you were kind of giving people extra rope because this is your way, or if they're just super fucking rude.
Sometimes it's a little of both. I mean, I think that I give people rope. That's the whole premise of the show.
Then they hang
You
themselves,
you can go a little bit farther on our show than you can go on other shows. You can talk over each other a little bit. Like that's actually, if we were sitting at a table and we were arguing, we'd probably be talking over each other.
Of course. Yeah.
It's okay.
I try to calm it down.
I don't lose.
Shut up.
I don't shut it down immediately for that reason. The thing I shut down is when I'm like, this is impossible to understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop talking so that we can at least disentangle what he's saying and what she's saying. Right? And so I think I don't mind the fire. I don't mind the passion. I think that's an important ingredient for an authentic conversation. So I don't always want to shut that down. And I think that sometimes people just get carried away because they forget they're on TV and they think that they're actually at that dinner table.
Or they
And
know they're on TV and they're checking Twitter as soon as the
there's
segment's
that.
over.
There's that.
And then the other thing that I notice is that some people have the last worditis, where they must have the last word. They cannot give an inch. They cannot let someone else. And this has happened to absurd degrees on the show before, to the point where even I, who rarely gets upset, got very upset one time, where two panelists were yelling at each other over literally one person mishearing what the other person said. And rather than stopping talking for 2 seconds so that they could be told that they misheard what they thought they heard, they just kept arguing.
I think I remember this.
And
No, I mean, we don't want to talk about Batya without her being here. No, not Batya. Joking. Come on.
I love Batya. Yeah. I think she's actually
It's actually Batya
Batya.
with an exclamation point.
Yeah, she has a new show. Batya.
exclamation point.
Jeb.
She's got a lot of passion.
Yes.
But she also has those unconventional views.
Yeah, yeah.
Not to go out on a tangent about Batya, but I think that she adds a lot of value.
Yeah.
But people do ignore me. And I don't like it. It is annoying. But it's not annoying because of my ego, but it's annoying because it's annoying for people at home.
Yes.
I think
is
Camille's just
annoying
trying to
for people who are
audition
watching.
to be the enforcer.
Like when I'm there the next
Yeah,
time. Just
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of get,
People keep telling me to get a mute button.
A real life mute button?
Like
some
I don't
people
watch
do this.
I don't watch sports, but they tell me this is what they do on Around the Horn.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Do you,
No, I know this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. Or
yeah,
they have,
it's a thing.
have
It's
done
a-
it. I don't
yeah,
know.
Just boop.
But
They
just
shut
don't
up.
invite them back.
Maybe that
Come on.
happens.
Don't invite them back. They're
I
bad
mean, look,
guests. Don't invite
Put
them
them on
back.
timeout.
They have
Some
no,
people get a little bit of a timeout.
Yeah.
Look, I try not to be too much of a traffic cop, but it's like it's for the people at home.
Okay.
Because I get the complaints. I get the hate mail. That's like, that show was unintelligible because these two kept yelling at each other. And I don't like that. And I wish
One
people would
time that
stop.
happened with us recently, it was when I was drunk and yelling at Batya.
I wasn't going to mention
I
it
apologize
because
to her.
I wanted you to make
I mean,
a
I
good
was
impression.
still right, but I apologized to her. I wouldn't be drunk on CNN.
See, that's the thing about one thing I will say
was
about
still right.
Batya is that she
loves
loves
to
a
fight.
good
She
debate.
Oh, no,
loves
no.
it.
She,
Yeah,
loves
she
a
did
she
good
walks
fight.
into the room and kicks him straight in the nuts.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not.
it's great. And we used to do a thing together for the Free Press. It was just us side by side. And I think that we didn't end up doing anything beyond that because it was just us and a guest and it was so boring. It's like, can we just fight each other? That's what we want. We want a cage match. But I love her to death and she's great. She's wrong about everything, but she's a fun, smart person.
See, that, can I just say?
Yeah.
That right there, that is, I think, the essence of the show that the good shows that I come away and I'm like, this is a good show. It's when I have people like that who say, I think this person is wrong about everything.
Yeah.
Great person,
Yeah.
like them a lot. Let's go get a drink, whatever. And some people think that is inauthentic and fake. And I think that is being a human being.
Yes.
It's not, I
Yeah.
mean,
That
I
is
think,
being
Yeah.
a human
no,
being.
I don't think it's fake at all. I mean, We had John Lovett from Pod Save America on, and we had like great communications after with him. I'd love to have him back. Disagreed with everything he said, but he was a fun guest.
everything.
He was not everything.
How
but
do
a lot.
you disagree with all of John
Yeah.
Lovett
Yeah.
and Bhatia?
Moynihan
What are we talking about?
disagree.
They're both communists, okay? Yeah. And I also, I'm also like Jamaican about gay people. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding.
My God.
Bhatia boy. No. No. We can cut that. No, let's
No,
leave
don't
it.
cut
Let's
it.
leave it.
As a stand. Were you going to make a point? You
No,
were making a-
no.
Oh, okay.
To the book. Let's talk about
I want to talk about the book.
Jesse.
Yeah, we've deferred this for too long already.
Yeah.
A dream deferred. So
We've
I'm going
talked
to
about
begin.
Jesse a lot on the show over the years. I'm totally serious.
And he
Don't
has a
make
great Jesse Jackson impression that he'll do for you.
I did it for one of his very close friends at dinner. You were there.
Yeah,
The
I
gang-
know.
The gang leader.
Yeah.
Who he's friends with and great guy.
I'm going to begin with a criticism.
Oh, boy.
It's too short, Abby. I wanted more. No.
You're getting the job interview.
No.
Like, what's your weakness?
No.
I
It's
try
like,
too
I
hard.
try too hard.
There'll be more. It's fine. There will be blood.
Yeah.
That's a favorite movie of mine. There won't
It
actually be
was,
blood. I'm
too short.
being very serious. There's like experiences that I've had, literary experiences where I read something and it kind of changes my perspective on the world. I had that with a bunch of weird like Bastiat and Hayek on the libertarian side. But also with Taylor Branch's like King Years trilogy, like encountering and reading that was profoundly important for me. And as I was reading this, I could kind of get this sense that this is part of the source material here. Like it transports you back to this time. I think we have this experience, given my age perhaps. I imagine Jesse Jackson as a man in history and being able to have this trip through his past where he was this man witnessing history and then partaking in it, and you're giving me a sense of his thinking at the time. It's a richly rewarding experience. I'd commend the book to people for that reason alone, but it was kind of short. Like I wanted more detail, especially about the background.
That. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a bit of a
It's not a criticism
struggle.
when they say thank you.
In
For the record.
Yeah, that's true.
You
That
didn't
is
do
true.
enough, Abby.
That's true.
I'm sorry.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. I mean, look, I think that this book was conceived as being about his sort of political life and this sort of specific era in his very long history of doing a lot of things, good and bad, ups and downs, all of it, that was, I think, kind of underrated in many ways.
First campaign especially.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so in order to get there, you kind of have to give the backstory. And then as I'm writing the book, you as a writer and as a journalist, and you talk to all these people, I started off by being like, I really don't want to psychoanalyze this guy. Okay? Not my job. Don't have a degree. Not going to do it. But everybody is like, you can't write about this man or this chapter without understanding the psychology of this type of figure.
Yeah.
And in a way, he is a type of figure, right? Like he's both a civil rights type of figure, but he's also a guy who runs for president type of figure who has like a particular relationship with their father, a particular relationship with themselves, with a desire for adulation, for history. And you have to trace that back to where he came from, Greenville, South Carolina, and the sort of provenance of his birth, this child born to a young teen mother out of wedlock in the dying days of the Jim Crow South. And that is Jesse Jackson's origin story, but it is also part of the story that tells you about both his incredible gifts and also his flaws as well.
Yeah, that need for attention and acceptance, the
for
kind
power,
of
too.
persistent striving, the proving himself.
Yeah.
I found all of that really fascinating. I mean, one of the first things that I wrote down as I was reading it that I wanted to talk about was this experience where Jesse he's meeting MLK and he's met MLK. They're in Chicago and he convinces him to go to this fundraiser. And he's raised like $50,000 for him, and King is in tears because he didn't expect this particular gift. But now I'm realizing, having said that I'm leaping ahead, and that we should probably take a beat and go back, because Jesse becoming a part of the civil rights movement. I mean, very early on in the book, we get to the assassination of MLK.
Yeah.
And what most people know as the beginning of the Jesse Jackson, like this public story.
Yeah.
And that is not
hugely controversial.
It's not a kind of honorable circumstance in many respects. He's there, he's doing honorable things, he's part of an honorable movement, but there's this huge question about this blood-streaked shirt. And I'm just curious about the way you approached it. And part of the reason I say I wanted more is because I've also read like Ralph Abernathy's book.
Mm-hmm.
And
Abernathy's book is an unbelievable assault on Jesse Jackson.
And there are also details in there about Abernathy and King that are not at all the sort of things that you would expect someone to include because it's not praiseworthy.
Yeah.
And you have to navigate that sort of terrain here. You have to decide whether to include it, whether to exclude it. And I'm just curious about how you approached that particular aspect of Jesse Jackson's origin story.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those things that you can't not tell because it is kind of at the heart of the story. You know, he became Jesse Jackson that we all know because right after Dr. King was assassinated, he left Memphis, where he was, and flew to Chicago that same night.
Same shirt on.
Wearing a blood-soaked shirt with Dr. King's blood on it. Next morning, he was on television speaking on behalf of, you know, the movement at that time. And that act, that single act, both made him one of the most famous people of his generation. It alienated him from, at that point, his closest colleagues and friends. And it created decades of mistrust, conspiracy theories, all sorts of things about him. And this public perception among a lot of people, black and white, by the way, that he was just this, you know, insatiable attention seeker. Mm-hmm. So that moment, that's just sort of the big picture. That moment is very formative. And the good news for me is that I was not the first person to write about it. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot written and said about it.
Would you have not wanted to do
Reynolds,
that?
I would not have wanted to be the first person to write about it. Barbara Reynolds, a journalist, did a great biography of Jesse Jackson in the 70s. And she hashes out a lot of these different accounts. And what I do and add to that is some more accounts that were more contemporaneous, things that have happened in the last 10, 15 years, statements from people like Hosea Williams. And I spoke to Ambassador Young. And, you know, I think what I wanted to really understand was not just what did he do, but why did he do it? Mm-hmm. And how did that affect the rest of his life? And I think that the takeaway that I have, somebody who wrote about this, was that, first of all, he was in his 20s. He was like 26.
It's incredible.
At the time. So he was a young man and was sort of, I don't know, I mean, imagine coming from nowhere, effectively, finding yourself literally feet in the inner circle of Dr. King, the foremost civil rights leader of your time. You're in your 20s. He also has a gift. He has an incredible speaking gift. He had that gift in that time and saw himself as being sort of at the center of the universe. And I think that he was drunk on that in a way. And some of that I think he acknowledged because later on, you know, he said what he did in those moments after Dr. King was killed, he was in shock, he was angry, he was young. Those were the sorts of adjectives that he used to describe his mental state. I think that that's all true. It was, in the view of many people, tasteless or insensitive, but he was also just someone who was overtaken by the events and the emotions and probably wasn't properly equipped with the emotional intelligence to handle it.
Does that in any way taint his legacy if it is true, because the legacy is the origin story, right? And it's Ralph Abernathy's book was very controversial when it comes to 89 or 90 when it comes out. And, because he's also talking about King's dalliances the previous night in his book, which is kind of surprising when you go back and read it. But when you look at this stuff, the number of people that were in the motel room who also really brutally criticized Jackson and said he was not right there. He must have smeared this blood. One person who said when they were leaving, going towards the hospital, he said, "Don't talk to the media." I'm sure you remember the story. Yeah. And turns around and Jesse Jackson's out there doing a press gaggle. And it's like, he's young, but there's something in the great civil rights leader of his time, of our time, so great that he gets a holiday and he's spoken about with reverence to this day. In that moment, he sees an opportunity, which is kind of a hard thing to deal with in a way. About and I have very positive and very negative things about Jackson. I think he's a brilliant guy. I think he's actually underappreciated as a writer. When I would, I think
that's right.
I always quote his '84 speech at the convention.
Which is a brilliant. It's a brilliant speech.
Brilliant. My grape has turned to a raisin. My joy bell has lost its resonance. Charge it to my head, not to my heart. I looked. He wrote it.
He did.
I was like, who is the speechwriter? I looked for a while, and I was he wrote that himself. In that kind of preacher lyricism, he's very good at. So there's like highs and lows with Jesse. But I wonder what you think about that origin story in so many people who are not political opponents of his. They were allies. They were all there. Found it necessary to speak out against him, either at the time or much later.
I think that is all valid.
Yeah.
The premise of this book is not that he is a perfect hero. It is actually that he is a man, a human, very flawed in many ways that are very apparent. And I think it is totally valid that people, and understandable and normal and right, that those people who were so deeply hurt by his actions in those days felt like he just completely lacked the self-control to hold himself back from seizing the opportunity. And I he thought that he was the only person who really could step into Dr. King's shoes. And imagine that if you're Ralph Abernathy, or if you're
like, what the fuck?
Andy Young, or if you're all these other people, you're looking at him like,
seriously?
What?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think at the time it was just like, what? Yeah. You're in your mid-20s, like you just showed up here. I think people just felt like it was incredibly presumptuous. But the reason he thought that was because he knew he had a gift. He knew that he was actually an incredibly powerful speaker, that he could motivate people in a way that Ralph Abernathy couldn't.
Did not know.
And that he had also
or
shown—
Bayard Rustin or people who were brilliant, but
he'd
not
shown
great.
the ability. You brought up the story about the fundraiser that he did. He had shown the ability in those moments to rally not just the support, but the money, the capital of this sort of burgeoning Black upper and middle class in Chicago in the service of the civil rights movement. And so he shows up, he goes to Chicago where none of the other King apostles are willing to go because it's too cold and it's too racist. And he goes to Chicago and he says, okay, I'm going to do it. And he gets all of these religious leaders and bank owners and business owners and, Jet Magazine and all of these Black businesses. And he brings them together and is like, okay, let's raise $50,000 for Dr. King right now. And he's able to do things like that. Yeah. And he came out of that experience thinking, I am the only person who can both do the public-facing part of this and do that other part, the financial part, the sort of like the economic leverage piece. And in a way, he wasn't wrong, but it was incredibly presumptuous. And it did, it deeply, deeply affected those relationships. And I don't
He
know.
wasn't wrong because he
None
took
of them,
that mantle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He
took
ran
it.
for
But he
president.
also
He took
managed to do the thing, and
Yeah.
and I think that's again details of the book that I love, and you should chime in after this, Matt. But the details of the book that I love, among the details of the book that I love, are the fact that the detail is there, like this distance between the North and the South. And not just the North and the South, because the South is racist and the North is not. No, the distance between blacks in the North and the South.
Yes.
That the established industrialist class of blacks in the North didn't feel connected to the civil rights movement that was taking place down there. The tension for families who saw the young people who they were placing their hopes in getting involved in this ridiculous radical movement that almost certainly couldn't succeed. Once the civil disobedience starts and you see your kid getting locked up, you don't care that it's for a good cause. You imagine they're throwing their lives away. It's become so common for people to invoke the history of oppression in this country and black uplift as this cudgel and this just kind of this continuum of white people oppressing black people, white supremacy, that we've eradicated all of the important, wonderful nuance that is just infused throughout these stories.
And the
that-
moral
that helps us
quandaries as they
understand.
came up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that we do is that with certain people in American life, Martin Luther King, Thomas Jefferson kind of come quickly to mind, although Thomas Jefferson has other complications to be sure. But
Is that what you call owning slaves?
owning tons of slaves.
It's complicated.
No, but like the sort of like the founding, the writing of the Declaration.
Yes.
Like there's these moments that we just imbue the whole thing with like this incredible purity. Even like Jackie Robinson breaking the color bar. We pretend that everyone loved Jackie Robinson. No, it was never a point when everyone loved Jackie Robinson. He was a controversial figure throughout the entire time until he died. And then Jesse Jackson gave just a remarkable eulogy at his funeral, which is he's sliding into home now and all of that. But
right, yeah.
I think he did Donny Hathaway too.
Did he really?
I think so.
He did a lot of these funerals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just elbowing his way into
Yeah.
the
Jesse would
funeral.
show up at
No, they
funerals
wanted him there.
and,
They wanted him there.
hostage
protest.
situations abroad. That and funerals. Yeah.
But like I think that we have a naive idea about the acquisition of power in this country in moments where we really all identify with that. We all identify with the Declaration of Independence for the most part. We all identify, I would hope, with the letter from Birmingham jail. But the letter from Birmingham jail itself is a statement of explanation against people who are questioning what he's doing there, people who are ostensibly on his side. And so I think that we, like in thinking of Jesse Jackson sort of stepping into power, we were bringing with us this naivete about like, well, there's this pure way to do it. At every single step, when someone steps into power, I think in American history, there's always this element of ambition that's unseemly.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. And I think that's right. So one thing I would say is like, I was listening to you just say that a second ago. I mean, the civil rights era as a cudgel, I don't know that I would characterize it that way. What I would say is that I think that this era has its nuances when you know about it, when you have read the history and you see what the movement looked like, and the fact that the movement utilized and relied on alliances between Black people who were incredibly strategic and put their lives on the line, and also many white people who were a part of that struggle as well,
Who were martyred.
and who were killed in that struggle. A white person was killed in Selma and in Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman, and in all of these different moments. And so I think that it is only when you don't know the history that you might think that this is just like, well, Black people good, white people bad. That's not how the history actually goes. And then on top of that, I think even within, to your point, all of these moments, there are differences of opinion about strategy and about who should lead. And even within the Black community, differences of opinion about the Black Power movement and about, what Dr. King was doing. There were many people many Black people who were not comfortable with what Dr. King was doing. Many Black people who were not comfortable with the Black Power movement in Chicago. And, I write about in the book, though, that even Jesse Jackson was not considered, by the way, in that movement with the Black Panthers that were in Chicago. But at times, they had to link arms because there was a lot of racism in Chicago. and in the case of the Black Panther movement, the federal government engaged in a bloody, deadly raid that killed Fred Hampton in his bed. And then when they were coming later to arrest Bobby Rush, guess where Bobby Rush, who, as we now know, went on to be a congressman, but was a Black Panther, guess where Bobby Rush went? He was a Black Panther, did not really identify with what Jesse Jackson was doing, but he went to Jesse Jackson's Push Coalition to surrender to the authorities who were going to arrest him. And so at different points in our history and in all of these struggles, differences of opinion on strategy, differences of opinion on leadership, but the central struggle is actually the same. It is actually the racism. And, it doesn't make I think it is not a one-dimensional story. And I think that there are some people who would prefer it to be because it's easier to recite and to remember when it's one-dimensional. But the complexity is the point. The nuance is the point. And when we look,
makes it actually more admirable in some ways that like if it was so easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
And you have to mount these complexity problems.
And I think that when we look at where we are right now, and when we are in history, right? We're experiencing history. Even right now, there are all these different movements happening, and some of them are right, some of them are wrong. But I also think that they all kind of need to exist. They all push up against one another in different ways to kind of make progress possible. Because I don't think that, frankly, if you didn't have a Malcolm X, I'm not sure that MLK would have been seen the way that he was. If you don't have a Black Panther movement, you know what I mean? Like you don't have a willingness to accept what seems moderate to you. And so I think that there's a role for all of these movements in what's happening in the country, whether it's in the 60s or the 50s or right now.
Yeah, I mean, you see somebody like Jesse Jackson, and he's still alive. He's, not in the best shape.
84 years old, yeah.
But he's still alive. And I look at him not as a political figure, but as a figure of consequence. I mean, you can write a book. I can imagine someone writing it and saying, why didn't you talk about Hymietown? Why didn't you talk about, what people say, he was shaking down companies, having a child with his secretary at Rainbow Push.
It's all in there.
It's all in there, but why am I not asking you about that, Matt, Kmele? Because those are political battles in the moment. And I think that Jackson has achieved this thing where he's a figure of consequence.
Right.
And we look at his consequence on the various movements and not litigate all the dumb stuff that he said or all the stupid stuff that he did. I mean, I'm interested in the origin story because it's the creation of Jesse Jackson as a political character. But I can imagine, I always anticipate our emails in these ones. Well, he did this one time, and it's like, no. How does he fit in the American political landscape, this many years after the fact? The Panthers is a great example. I've written endlessly about them. And
not in a positive way.
Never in a positive way. Now, I'm a Bayard Rustin guy, who I think, by the way, because of his both foreign policy views, I would say his homosexuality too, which had hobbled him quite a bit, particularly with King and some of the people in his inner circle. Rustin's not remembered. And I think the Panthers, because they're sexy and they wear the cool jackets and the hats and they got the guns, and there's something very cool about it. The way people exist in history later is what I'm concerned with. I'm not concerned with what I'm interested in of, are they getting undue credit? I mean, do people know who Bayard Rustin is? No. Do kids know who are learning about civil rights movement? Of course you know who King is. but do they know Huey Newton? Much more likely than Bayard Rustin. So how it all shakes
What
out.
do they know about Huey Newton, though?
They don't know the stuff that is important, I think, of, killing 16-year-old prostitutes and things like that. But I'm not interested in, his peccadillos, his personal peccadillos. It's just this place in history where you write this book, the 84 campaign, for instance, you see it as a very consequential moment, right? I mean, we're not looking at delegates. We're not looking at vote totals. Why is that important for us when we're looking back in American history? That campaign was more interesting and more consequential than you know.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't think that, again, we don't need to lionize in order to
of course.
acknowledge the consequence of figures in our history, right?
Absolutely.
There are plenty of people, especially the ones who run for president, who are deeply, deeply flawed and who have all kinds of ups and downs in their lives. And I think Jesse Jackson is exactly that type of person. And so when I look at these races, 84 and 88, these are campaigns that are about an idea of what politics can be that I think is still incredibly valid right now. That he envisioned, he used Black political power as a framework to say that Black Americans have the ability to, in the Democratic Party, just by virtue of their numbers and the power that they have in numbers, to demand attention and demand concessions from the establishment for all of the other people in the Democratic coalition. So Hispanic people, Asian Americans, Arab Americans, gay people, women. It was a framework to broaden the aperture of the Democratic Party at the time. And I think that is the first part of what makes him consequential. The second part is that he ended up with a campaign that actually had one of the more effective economic populist messages in modern history, in which he argued to Americans that, hey, the system's not working for you, that they actually want to divide you along racial lines, along gender lines, along all these other lines. But guess what? They're all working against all of you. Working class Americans, poor Americans. And I think that economic framework is interesting and important to study. And it's also relevant right now because
the forefront.
Guess what? We're in the midst of a pitched battle between two major political parties about who can most effectively speak to the working class. And the party that's able to do it most effectively and also able to do it in a way that actually does cross all of those identity lines is going to be the party that wins. That's what happened in 2024. And I think that that's one of the reasons that, especially if you're a Democrat, you should be paying attention to this. Because I think that there is a lot to be said for how do you acknowledge people's identities without pandering to identity. Those are different things, right? And I think that the Democratic Party has kind of slipped into sort of identity pandering in the last however many years in a way that I think misses the point of what someone like Jesse Jackson was trying to say. He was actually trying to say to white farmers and blacks in Detroit and New York City and, blacks and whites in the South, in the Deep South. He was trying to say to all of those people simultaneously, I have a message for you. And it's about how this country can work better for you.
It's more of a class campaign.
It's a much more of a class campaign. However, it does not ignore.
He was very much
it does
a
not
race
ignore
man.
those things. It does not ignore race. It does not ignore gender. It does not ignore all of those things. And that's a tough nuance for us to kind of swallow in these times that we are in.
Well, this is interesting, and we are at a place where we have to stop. And I suppose this is not a French goodbye. It is not a French goodbye. I promise.
Telling yourself.
Goodbye?
Yeah.
I am somebody is the mantra that he would promote routinely. And I am somebody has this symmetry with I am a man, which is
Yes.
the sign that the sanitation workers were carrying during that protest, which is when King was killed. And both of those things are distinct from Black Lives Matter. And so much of my own personal philosophy about race stuff and our politics and the derangement that occurs when people do not understand the history in a nuanced way and go to the extreme that you were just describing is that you end up with Black Lives Matter, this assertion of dignity on the basis of these immutable characteristics, which is a profound compromise and actually disconnected from this idea of I am somebody, this personal uplift, this kind of imbued self-worth and dignity. And I think there's a cost associated with that. And part two, I hope, of this
I know there
exchange
he goes opening a can of worms right before he
will
says
maybe
goodbye.
be an
Gotta go.
opportunity for us to
By the way,
explore
let's
this.
talk
But
about
I'll give
I
you-
do have to
but I'll give
say-
you the last word.
I do have to say, I mean, look, I know that is your viewpoint on Black Lives Matter. I do have to say that for the people for whom Black Lives Matter means something different, it doesn't mean necessarily an exclusionary message.
No, not exclusionary. Yeah.
But I think it's just important to say so people don't get on me for not expressing that.
Not pushing back against this
No, you-
psychopath.
Yeah,
think
well,
you've-
no,
you've
I mean,
made
I just
made your views clear.
because
Yeah.
because look, I think the argument is that there is value in acknowledging the value of Black lives specifically, and that does not mean that your life doesn't matter or your life doesn't
mine
matter.
doesn't, but go ahead. Yeah.
But that in a country in which many people perceive, and it is true, that Black lives have not mattered as much, that just saying those words imbues life into that concept. And I said this to you the other day when we were having a in the break conversation about this very briefly. But I think Black identity is one of the very few things that it's like a bad thing to identify as Black, when no one would say to Jewish people, you're not allowed to identify as Jewish.
I wouldn't say
No one
not
would
allowed,
say-
but I would offer the same critique.
No one would say to Italian Americans, you're not allowed to identify as Italian.
I would offer the same critique.
These days,
Yeah,
these days, right?
I would offer the same critique.
Well, I'm saying these
Yeah.
days, right? Because there was a time when a Jewish person, an Italian person, and a Black person
This is about to be a hilarious
Right?
joke, by the way. They go to a bar.
they're kicked out.
Yeah. And everyone's like, all of you get the fuck out. That's the punchline.
We don't serve
But
you people.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
that you are Black, proud of being Black, that you want specifically to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter is not meant to exclude. It is
Agreed.
meant
I get it.
to validate people's real identities.
Yeah.
And I think there's nothing wrong with that, because being Black is a real identity. Whether you are from Jamaica or Trinidad or Africa or whatever, like, it is a real identity. It is with a cultural identity. It's a racial identity. It is a diasporic identity, and it has value. And it is okay for people to identify that way. And so,
That is
That is-
literally
that
the
is what I will
opposite of
say.
everything you believe, and that was the friend.
Yeah,
you
you
say it's
gave-
not going to be a French
What?
goodbye.
I didn't
You gave
do-
the last
Yeah,
word.
I
Abby
didn't do
says-
it.
we will
Yeah.
agree to disagree. We will agree to disagree on that.
But
Yeah.
but
But
I
wanted
not
to make sure
disagreeing
that
on a
was
lot of that.
said, because I mean, I think you can totally have critiques of the Black Lives Matter movement. But I personally think that if we are going to have a thoughtful conversation about what the phrase means, we should have a thoughtful conversation about what it means and what it doesn't mean. And it was never meant to mean exclusion. And you know, when Asian Americans were being murdered in the 80s, and Jesse Jackson went to San Francisco and sat with the mother of a young Asian man who was basically lynched in public, and for the first time uttered, you know, the kind of the pain of that community, the specificity of the pain of Asian Americans facing violence because of their identity, that also was a validation of them. And it mattered then. And I think to me, it's a similar desire of people to feel like their pain, just like the pain of Jewish Americans in this moment, matters. It is important to say that when Jewish people are experiencing anti-Semitism, that is real, it is valid, and it should be spoken about specifically. Just that is what Black Lives Matter means. And in the same way that Stop Anti-Semitism is also about validating that very specific and very real concern of a very specific community.
I got to get your number because I need to text you when I say, as a Black person, and he says, "I'm not Black." You know this. This thing.
He has said
So
that
I just,
on
I
my
was
show.
on your show.
I'm still here, and I'll say this.
You gotta
Abby,
write it down for me so I know how to respond.
Abby, I'm so glad you came. When we come back, hopefully the conversation could begin with trying to locate the individual in the context. In the context of acknowledging fully, as I do, that kind of predation happens, but because something is framed as this negation of your humanity, does it necessarily have to become a point of pride in response? Is that inverse act the appropriate act? Lots of people say so.
Well,
the challenge for our daughters, it'll be interesting.
I think I would love to. We have so much to discuss on that front, and we will. I'll be back.
Thank you so much, Abby Phillip.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for the book.
Appreciate it.
And bye.
Bye.
We know of new methods of attack.